It's fun because things are actually happening. Very different than most of the time when people get elected.
And I will shut down the federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the state.
Most of the time when people get elected, they claim all these things when they're running for president. Then they get into office and not much changes.
Individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
And in fact, a lot of what they campaigned on, they don't practice at all. Great example is the Obama administration. The Hope and Change website had to be changed because there was a bunch of stuff in there about whistleblowers.
No, I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. I called for a thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws.
Protecting whistleblowers, which they didn't do at all. There was one of the worst administrations for whistleblowers.
Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David dismantle Barack Obama's carefully polished image, pulling back the curtain on the glossy speeches and hollow promises. They cut through the failures of his policies, the fractures in his legacy, and his fixation on personal branding at the expense of genuine leadership. What emerges is not the idol admired by supporters, but an empty figure who sold the nation hope.
Obama, during this Kamala Harris administration, it changed my opinion of that guy.
I don't understand how we got so toxic, so divided, and so bitter.
He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that.
Did you have a high opinion of him before?
Yeah, I did. I did, just as an intelligent person, a statesman. He's probably like caught up in the system. It's very difficult to make real meaningful change. You think you're going to do something, and then you get into office, and you're like, oh God, what a quagmire this place is. But watching him just straight up lie about Trump.
The childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
The thing that got me was that very fine people thing, the white supremacist thing. They just kept trying to say that he was a racist.
When he's not complaining, he's trying to sell you stuff. You're running for president and you're hawking merchandise. Gold sneakers, $100,000 watch. Why are you selling the watch? What are you doing?
Which is this thing that I think worked in like 2017. I don't think it works anymore. I don't think people believe it anymore. We've gotten numb to all this stuff.
Talking to Rogan, and Joe says, look, let's face it, Obama was one of our best presidents we've had. When him and I are, I'm paraphrasing, to now switching from that was just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe even a year ago, to now this message here. Go ahead, Rob.
We did trust the government, but there's this, which is such a weird thing to say. You know, I used to think it was the Obama administration, but boy, Obama during this Kamala Harris administration, it changed my opinion of that guy.
While delivering disillusionment, the myth of Obama doesn't merely fade, it's shattered beyond repair. Barack Obama has long thrived on an image so carefully polished it concealed the flaws beneath. He was the president who promised hope, change, unity, and progress. But when Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David take aim at him, the facade quickly unravels. Obama isn't the untouchable icon.
Can I get a glass of water? This is not a prank. You never seen it?
No.
It's amazing. He gets a glass of Flint tap water. I swear to God, he drinks it like this. Watch this.
Can I get some water? I'm still waiting for my water. I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say
it's
that.
It's 100% a stunt. When was the last time a president stopped a speech to ask, can I get a glass of water? No, you bring water on stage with it.
His admirers believe. He's the politician who perfected style while falling short on substance. A leader who built a brand on charisma but left behind a legacy that looks more like a warning than an achievement. Rogan doesn't bother pretending Obama was anything extraordinary. He rips apart the reality that Obama coasted into the presidency on slogans, not solutions. Obama didn't win because of bold policies. He won because he mastered the art of sounding good. He wasn't a statesman. He was a...
There is what Obama said on the same video. There is what Trump actually said. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting lie. And he's talking about George Washington. He said George Washington had slaves. Let's play it.
On both sides of a white supremacist rally.
You had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down a very, very important statue from Robert E. Lee to another name. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Excuse me, how about Thomas Jefferson? Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
The news has said that lie over and over and over and over and over again. The mainstream corporate-controlled news that wanted this narrative said that over and over and over again. They repeated it.
Salesman, a man who packaged speeches like product. He knew that a calm, confident delivery could hypnotize crowds into believing they were witnessing greatness. But as Rogan points out, speeches don't put food on the table. Slogans don't secure the border. And charisma doesn't pay the bills. Obama sold the dream, pocketed the reward, and left America dealing with the hangover. Patrick Bet-David takes the critique even deeper, zeroing in on the arrogance baked into the Obama.
Tell me what place Trump wouldn't go to on media where they would trash him. Where would he not go to? Would he not go to CNN? Would he not go to MSNBC? Would he not go to Jimmy Fallon? Would he not go to Jimmy Kimmel? Would he not go to? Would he not? He went everywhere, right? Now, let me flip this on you. How many times have you seen Obama, Clinton, Hillary, any of those guys
Biden
go on Fox ever? How many times? The answer is never.
A brand, the smug confidence that dripped from every meticulously staged moment. Obama didn't just run campaigns. He built a cult of personality. He sold himself as history's chosen figure, the answer to everything America thought it needed. But behind the polished image was mediocrity dressed up in eloquence. Bet-David doesn't pull punches. Obama wasn't a true leader, he was an influencer. A trailblazer of style over substance politics who transformed the president.
I think the best people age the hardest. I think Obama was probably like a very idealistic young man
Oh, Lord, what's going on now? Who's hollering? I can't even see it.
who really wanted to change the world. And that dude aged more than anybody.
I mean, I'm getting old, so I can't hear that well. I can't see that good.
Who aged the least? Trump. Trump just
This is something that
he just brushed that shit off his shoulders like it was nothing.
Into little more than a performance. And the failures weren't buried, they were out in the open. Take healthcare, Obama's so-called crown jewel. It was pitched as the cure-all, a plan to cut costs and safeguard families. Instead, it spiraled into a bureaucratic nightmare that left millions angry, overcharged, or stripped of coverage altogether. The lofty promises collapsed the moment reality hit. Rogan exposes the hypocrisy. A president who swore you could keep your doctor, keep your plan, and save money ended up delivering the exact opposite. That wasn't transformation. It was deception, polished with good lighting and crowd applause. Foreign policy? Bet-David scoffs at the notion that Obama was some master strategist. His track record reads like a string of disasters. The rise of ISIS, the implosion of Libya, and the humiliation in Syria, where he drew a red line only to erase it with weakness. He stepped back when strength was needed and interfered.
And they moved like they're going to control you forever. Abusive policies, the LGBTQ agenda, the woke policies. And by the way, Peter Thiel said it best when he was on a podcast with Barry Weiss. He said, you realize when Musk got up and he says, this is the most monumental election of all time. Peter Thiel, who's a billionaire, very important guy behind closed doors.
When restraint would have served better. He didn't deliver peace. He left behind chaos. The Nobel Peace Prize handed to him before he'd accomplished anything wasn't just ironic. It was a global punchline. Obama craved adoration, but applause isn't leadership. He wanted to be remembered as a visionary. The problem? Vision without execution is delusion. Bet-David demolishes the myth of Obama as a unifier. He didn't mend divisions. He deepened them. Race relations soured. Public trust in government collapsed. Polarization hardened like concrete. Obama never stopped talking about bringing people together, yet his leadership left the country more fractured than ever. He wasn't a bridge builder. He was a divider cloaked in eloquence. He cultivated the conditions for resentment to thrive, and when it did,
Peter Thiel was on Barry Weiss, a great podcast they did. He said, the last time identity politics worked was in 2008. It hasn't worked since 2008. 2008?
Obama.
He's saying Obama. And here's why he said it worked in 2008. He made such an interesting point. He said the reason why identity politics worked in 2008 was because Obama could go up there and saying, I'm the black person you've been waiting to vote for. And then he can go and says, I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, straight, gay, and then he would go to, and the reason why he could get away with it in 2008 was because social media wasn't yet at a point where things would go instant and you'd be held accountable.
He acted stunned, as if his own failures hadn't fueled the fire. And then there's the Democratic Party. Obama was hailed as the architect of lasting Democratic dominance, the leader who would secure power for a generation. Instead, the party crumbled under his watch. By the time he left office, Democrats had lost the House, the Senate, and a historic number of governorships and state legislatures. Bet David drives the point home. Obama wasn't the future of the party. He was the smiling face of its decline. The man who looked good while everything beneath him fell apart. He preaches about climate change while flying on private jet. He laments economic hardship while pocketing millions. Rogan doesn't have to exaggerate. Obama's hypocrisy speaks for itself. The so-called man of the people morphed into a parody of elite indulgence. The professor of humility now living like a billionaire celebrity. And yet, the smugness never faded. Obama still strolls onto stages, wagging his finger at Americans, warning about democracy's fragility, as though he hadn't helped.
Do you remember when they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, fuck this? Mm-hmm. And then they go, it kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up and stopped a war from happening.
Today, I authorize the armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians.
Corroded himself. He casts himself as the wise elder, the steady voice of reason, the one man who truly understands. But as Rogan points out, Obama doesn't understand. He engineered the very mess he now critiques. He fathered the politics of performance, the influencer presidency, the endless loop of speeches without solutions. Bet David cuts even deeper. Obama was never a revolutionary. He was a marketer. His true gift wasn't governance, it was self-promotion. He mastered the art of political branding, wrapping voters in a feel-good aura while delivering almost nothing of substance. His presidency didn't lift up the working class, it sold them out. Wall Street flourished. Elites pocketed fortunes. Silicon Valley soared. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans watched jobs disappear, wages stagnate, and costs skyrocket. Obama's America was a
and Biden got lucky.
Yeah.
It was such a profound moment. Mm-hmm. Meaning, now, what took place? Guess who lost all credibility in the room behind closed doors when everybody's waiting to see what he and she have to say? Guess who they are?
Is
Barack Obama
and Hillary?
And Michelle.
Oh, Michelle.
You used to sit in a room and you'd say something Schumer, you'd say something Pelosi, you'd say something Hillary, you'd say something Bill, you'd say something, everybody's like, Brock, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
The last one you go to, right? And I was like, hey, you guys just go live at your Martha's Vineyard type of stuff.
Yeah.
Your strategy didn't work.
Playground for the wealthy and a grind for everyone else. He turned the presidency into a personal brand, and when his time in office ended, he cashed in. History doesn't remember him for bold policies or decisive achievements. It remembers the speeches, the slogans, the image of being effortlessly cool. But cool doesn't put food on the table, doesn't protect borders, doesn't end wars, and doesn't restore trust in government. Cool fades. And when it did, Obama was exposed for what he always was, an empty suit. The myth of Obama was always brittle, and Rogan and Bet David don't just scratch at it, they shatter it. They reveal that behind the soaring oratory stood a politician who consistently failed to deliver. Behind the sleek branding was a record defined by weakness. And behind the polished smile was a man more focused on being remembered than on making
to volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto pen.
Obama's second term, he did none. Obama's first term, I think he did one. And Bush's first and second term, he did none on day one. This guy's come out the gates. One moment he's talking to World Economic Forum. Another second you're looking at him, he's talking to California, chewing out, Bass and Mayor Bass and talking to the folks there. Next minute he's in Vegas talking about no tax on tips. Next minute, you're seeing him talking to military folks. Next minute, you're seeing him on the media.
Real change. Obama didn't rescue America. He packaged it as a product. And like any overhyped brand, once the shine wore off, the flaws were impossible to ignore. In the end, Obama doesn't stand as the towering figure he imagined. He stands as a cautionary tale. Proof that charisma isn't competence, speeches aren't solutions, and branding isn't leadership. Rogan and Bet David expose him not as the savior of a generation, but as the salesman who peddled hope, delivered disappointment, and walked away wealthier than ever. The illusion has collapsed. The myth has vanished. And what's left is the hollow reality. Barack Obama was never the leader America needed, only the aura of intellectual.
Kamala!
Hello. Hi.
Hey there!
Hi.
Hi, you're both together.
Come
Oh,
on.
it's good to
How many
see
times has she done that walk? What do you think?
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. The words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express.
And we're going to have
So
some
thank
fun.
you both.
Say it.
It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this
That's
too.
right. So obviously, she's not a professional actress. Probably did 10, 20, 30 takes. This is a business of can't stand each other behind closed doors.
The brilliance Obama cultivated was never about strategy. It was about survival. He rode the wave of charisma, but when the tide receded, it revealed a coastline littered with failures. His presidency left behind fractured communities, broken promises, and a country that could barely remember him for anything beyond a slogan. Hope and change didn't inspire, it aged into bitter irony. Rogan and Bet David don't spare his post-presidency act either. The bloated speaking fees, the Netflix deals, the beachfront mansion paired with climate change sermons, all of it exposes a man who cashed in the moment he stepped out of office. Obama wasn't trying to transform America. He was busy building his own empire. And the Democratic Party paid the price. Under Obama, they learned he could electrify crowds but couldn't build durable infrastructure. By the time he left, the party was gutted, leaderless, and scrambling to stay relevant. Every chaotic election cycle since has been proof of that collapse. This is the real Obama legacy. A party hooked on his image, powerless without his presence, and still struggling to understand how it all slipped away. Bet David drives the point even harder, likening Obama to a master salesman who perfected the pitch but never delivered the product. The box looked immaculate, the wrapping flawless, the delivery smooth, but inside was nothing. Americans bought in, only to discover they'd been duped by one of the most skilled political marketers of modern times. He transformed the presidency into a stage show, a TED Talk on steroids, where applause carried more weight than accomplishment. Together, they dismantle the myth of Obama as an untouchable statesman. If anything, he embodied style over substance. A man who could win over Hollywood, dominate late-night talk shows, and plaster himself across magazine covers, yet faltered when it came to governing. His charm may have secured a place in the history books, but history itself will judge him differently. Strip away the spin, and his failures glare back, undeniable. and Rogan makes sure the hypocrisy doesn't escape scrutiny. The so-called champion of the underdog never had an issue rubbing shoulders with billionaires, vacationing with elites, and thriving in the very circles he once pretended to oppose. His version of leadership wasn't about lifting others up. It was about securing his own permanent seat at the table. And now, even his speeches feel dated. The same pauses, the same cadences, the same rehearsed punchlines, they no longer inspire. What once felt like brilliance now comes off as stale, like reruns of a show that lost its primetime appeal years ago. The magic act has expired, leaving only the memory of a trick that was never as profound as it seemed. By the time Rogan and Bet David are done dismantling him, the towering image of Obama has completely collapsed. What remains is a man whose greatest achievement was convincing people he was more than he ever was. A man who promised transformation but delivered stagnation. A man who styled himself as larger than history but may be remembered as nothing more than a fleeting brand, an overpriced illusion America has finally learned to see through. The final blow is unmistakable. Obama is not the political giant his admirers paint him to be. He is the perfect case study in how image can eclipse substance for a while, but never forever, because eventually the truth surfaces, and no amount of branding can disguise the emptiness of a legacy built on illusion.